All right. Hey, welcome to the Soapboxx podcast. I am your host, TJ Legacy. And today we have a special edition of the Soapboxx podcast because it's actually another crossover episode with the TJ Chatman show. So I have my co-host here, TJ Chatman, as we together are supporting independent Black media outlets. What's going on, TJ? How you doing?
What's happening? What's happening, family? How everybody doing out there?
Doing great, man. So we came together and we really wanted to collaborate to talk about voter education, voter awareness this week.
Yes.
And so we have numerous organizations tonight, and we also have, as you saw in the intro video, Orange County Supervisor of Elections, Bill Cowles is here to join us. Hi, Bill. How are you?
Doing good. Get all the pieces together here.
No,
missed all that hair and the mustache.
I saw the mustache and the hair, and things are a bit different.
They are. And
how long ago was that video?
that video, oh God, that was the UCF Alumni Achievement Award, which would have been probably in the mid 90s, or probably about 2002 maybe. Time flies. I started in the elections office in 1989 as the chief deputy. 96 is when I got elected the first time, and I was just reelected this year with no opposition for the seventh time. And that last statement's getting a little bit closer, about time to start thinking about traveling and more beach time.
Well, we can't have you go to the beach yet because we have an election that's coming up, and we really want to get prepared for it. So you're doing the work, and we appreciate you being here tonight to to help fill in any misinformation or to educate us further as we head to August the 18th and beyond. So TJ, we have some. It's weird because it's gonna be TJ and TJ, like I'm talking to myself, but we do have some organizations here tonight that do some great grassroots voter awareness. I do want to start with, and if I say pronounce your name wrong, please correct me. It's okay. Sometimes people butcher my name as well. Ricardo, is it Negron?
Negron.
Yes, and from Latino Justice. How are you tonight?
Yes, I'm doing good. Thanks for the invitation today. Really happy to be here.
Not a problem. And then we have Maria Jose from Hispanic Federation. Did I get you?
Yeah, you did. It's Maria Jose Chapa. Chapa's my last name. And
okay. I'm
glad to be here this evening. I know you said casual, but I've been casual for the past, 19 weeks. So I decided to dress up.
Yes. So yes, when we talked offline, you said you got to make sure the do is right. And so you are definitely camera ready. I appreciate the do and everything. Appreciate it. And we also have Debbie King from Familia, Vota. Hi, Debbie. How are you?
Hello. Hola. Buenas a todos. That's good to be inviting us.
Yes. And we also have good brother Marquis McKenzie from Florida Rights Restoration Coalition.
Hey, TJ, thank you for having me. I look forward to the conversation, and I hope all is well with everyone.
Yes. And TJ, this next person is a little closer to me because he was my former student government advisor when I was the student government president at Valencia Community College.
Wow.
Twice. That's 2 times.
Nice.
Student government president, 2 times, 2 administrations. Yes.
Okay.
Who's representing the League of Women Voters of Orange County, Mr. Victor Collazo.
Yes.
How you doing, Victor?
It's nice to be here. And TJ he was one of those that was followed my advice and became one of my biggest nightmares.
Yes. So the for all the activism and things that are going on right now, Victor could have stopped it, but he didn't. So he just let me fly, and I appreciate your tutelage and your leadership that's gotten me to this point. I really do appreciate that. So I wanted to start off, Bill, with some just general questions about some dates that you may have for the community when it comes to early voting in the elections of itself. And I know that the deadline passed for on July 20th to register to vote or change your address for this go round. But what are some important dates coming out of the supervisor elections office that the community should be aware of?
Yeah, let's step back to last Monday, July 20th. That was the last day to register to vote if you had never been registered to vote in Florida previously. And it also was the last day to change your political party affiliation. If you're already a registered voter and you've changed your address, the law allows you to update your address all the way up to and including on election day at the polls. But we strongly urge people to update their addresses now because of the fact that we're getting ready to mail out the sample ballots to every voter that will have information about their polling place and information about the ballot and all. So you can change your address as simple as calling the elections office at 407-836-VOTE. That's 8683. So you can call and change it right over the phone as long as you're a registered voter. You can fill out the application and check off address change, or you can go to the national voter registration, to the online voter registration, registertovoteflorida.gov. But key part is if you've moved, you can still update your address at this point. So vote by mail, ballots are out. It's not too late to request a vote by mail ballot. The law says the 10th day before the election, which is August the 8th, is the last day to request one, but that's a request so that it is mailed to you. And so you can still get a ballot after that date by picking it up at the elections office or having a designee come and pick it up for you with your written authorization. So vote by mail is happening. The key thing about vote by mail, those ballots must be in the elections office by 7 p.m. election night. The new law allows for drop boxes at all the early voting sites. And so there's a drop box there so that you can put your ballot in it and not put it through the mail. Because remember, first class mail sometimes takes 5 days or more to travel. And if you put your ballot in on the Monday before the election, there's no guarantee I'm going to get it on Tuesday. And a postmark does not count. So early voting starts on Monday, August the 3rd, and runs through the Sunday, August the 16th, 14 straight days, 18 locations around the county. They'll be on the sample ballot mailed out to all voters next week. It's also on our website. They're the same. They're almost all the same as what we used in the presidential preference primary. There's just one change where we're not at the Lake Nona Valencia College campus. We're now over at the Meadowwoods Gym as a early voting site for the primary. 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. each day. So you can go and vote at your convenience. And then drop off your ballot. And then election day will be as planned. Right now, we have polling places and poll workers staff all 247 locations. And so it's from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So those are kind of the key dates coming up with relationship to the 3 methods of voting.
Well, there's a question, and we want, like we said, we wanted to make this as interactive as possible. We have a question from the comment section. We have a Deborah Smith. She says, what percentage of vote by mail are not counted because they arrive late to the election office?
Good question.
Yeah, it's a good question. It changes based on the election. So there's not really a percentage. It's different, but it does happen. And it's unfortunate that we do not have where you can have the ballot accepted if it was postmarked by election day. So that's a strong message we need to be putting out there. Plus, all of us on here, I'm sure, have seen the stories about the changes at the United States Postal Service. There's concerns about whether it's going to be functional by the November election, but on the other hand, there's been some changes where it could have mail being delayed, and that's a major concern to us elections officials. So I strongly suggest that if you vote early on your vote by mail, put it in the mail. But if you're voting that last week before the election, it's better to go to one of those early voting sites. It's a drive-through situation. You just pull up to the tent. There's a staff person with a drop box. You put it in, and then that way there's no contact between you and the worker. You're putting your ballot directly into the box, and your I voted sticker is already in your vote by mail packet, so you have your sticker to wear. And in Orange County, we pay the postage for the returns on the ballot, so you don't even have to go buy a stamp to put on there. But if it's less than a week, hand deliver it to a early voting site or to our elections office, and never give your ballot to somebody you do not know and trust.
Absolutely.
Take
Because
responsibility.
I definitely want to talk to you. I have questions about that as well. We do have some more questions, but TJ, you had a question for Bill Cowles before?
Yeah, absolutely. So Bill, just to expound on what Debbie was saying earlier, and you just spoke on about making sure that your vote is postmarked. Is there going to be some type of grace period that says, okay, if you postmark it by this date, we'll still get it and count, even if the post office says, hey, we had a delayed, the truck crashed or something happened and whatever, and then now it finally gets there, but it's postmarked by a certain date. Is there a post date grace period that you guys have?
Not at the moment. A couple of things. One, state law is very clear. It must be in the elections office by 7 p.m. on election night. Recently, there was a lawsuit that was settled over this past weekend, and in there was the potential for court ruling, but the judge did not rule and was not part of the settlement. So the only way that there would be some type of extension beyond the 7 p.m. would have to come from an executive order by the governor, who's the only one that has the ability to override temporarily the election code.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
We have another question from the chat room, and please make sure that you're following the Soapboxx on social media, Soapboxx Podcast with 2X. We have Sean McQuaid. He says, how can you check if your mail-in ballot made it to the office?
Very good question, and it's very simple. If you go to ocfelections.com, you can track your ballot, and this information is on the secrecy sleeve in your vote by mail envelope, so you'll have it. It says that you go to ocfelections.com, and out there you can track. It will show you the date that you requested your vote by mail. Second, it'll show what date we mailed it. Then it will show you when the ballot was returned to our office, and then it will tell you what status your ballot's in. If everything matches, your signature matches, everything is good, it goes into being accepted and it's going to be counted. If for some reason you forgot to sign it, or you've changed your signature, or your signature has changed for some other reason and it doesn't match, it will then say that we have sent you a cure affidavit. And that's something that's relatively new in the law, is that as soon as we identify no signature or the signature doesn't match, we send you a cure affidavit. You fill out the affidavit, you attach your identification with it. When it comes back in, and the deadline for returning them now is on the Thursday after the election, so that any ballot that comes in on election day, a person still has a chance to fix it with that 2 extra days afterwards. As soon as you return that affidavit, it gets attached to your ballot becomes accepted, and that affidavit also serves as your update to your signature. And so that's the way you can make sure that your ballot's going to count. So you can track it on our website step by step. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always call us and we will take and look up and explain what the status is.
Okay, great. And I wanted to go around the horn, and TJ is going to help me out with this as well. Maria, I'm going to start with you. Can you explain to the community, and for those who don't know, who are not familiar with your organization, Hispanic Federation, what your role is, as far as what your role is, and why voter awareness is important for your organization, and what type of outreach do you do in the community?
Sure. So Hispanic Federation has been around for the past 30 years. They were founded in 1995, I believe. And basically, it's a national organization, and they're a 501c3. They're a nonprofit. They do a lot of services, a lot of advocacy work around immigration, the environment, civic engagement. My role specifically here in the state of Florida is Director of Civic Engagement and Organizing. And so we are in the midst of a voter registration campaign that was interrupted because of COVID-19, but myself, along with other organizations, are continuing to do the work remotely. So we're encouraging people to register online. So we have online voter registration links that go directly to the landing page for the Supervisor of Elections for the state of Florida.
Has that been successful? I'm sorry to cut you off, but has that been successful?
It's actually been quite challenging, to be quite frank. It's been quite challenging because we don't have that face-to-face interaction that we normally do out in the community. Okay. You know, we don't have that same rate of contact that we did prior to COVID-19. But what we have noticed, there has been an uptick in vote by mail. A lot of people are switching, who are already registered to vote, are doing vote by mail. Our organization, since 2018, we've registered over 45,000 people in the state of Florida. Even though we specifically target the Hispanic, the Latinx community, we register everyone. So we talk to everybody. We interface with the public, whoever that may be, to ensure that they're registered to vote. I do want to talk about, just kind of going back, what Bill was talking about with vote by mail. There has been a lot of myths and kind of disinformation campaign regarding vote by mail, that it's not secure, that people can commit fraud. And I just kind of wanted to talk about myths versus truths, because, you know, unfortunately, because of the climate, the political climate that we're in, because of what's going on, because of COVID-19, there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of how people are going to vote in 2020. There is a concern for a lot of groups. I know there's a lot of concern within the groups that I'm with. We have a voter protection coalition, things like that, where there's going to be a disenfranchisement of Black and Latino communities. There's a concern that because of COVID-19, that there's going to be a consolidation of polling locations. So people really need to, and that's the thing that I, want to post a bill, and for Orange County, obviously can't speak for all the other counties, but the concern is that people on election day will go to where they normally go to their voting location, but it's no longer there because of consolidating polling locations. And so we really want to make sure that people check their registration before August 18th. And we need to make sure that they check to see where their polling location is, because it may no longer be there because of shortage of poll workers, because of COVID-19, or for whatever the reasons may be.
Well, let's touch on that. I know I'm going to go to every other organization, TJ and I, but Bill, I wanted to give you an opportunity to respond to that as far as the consolidation of poll places due to COVID-19. How are we? I know this is one forum, and I know you've been on several other forums, but how are we educating the community on the different polling places and the effects of COVID-19 and how it's going to affect the electoral process?
Well, for us in Orange County, we have a polling place for all 247 precincts, and we have a unique opportunity here because, like around the state, school districts are making decisions about when or if they're going to reopen. And so our arrangement here with Orange County Public Schools is we've taken all 247 precincts and put them up against the closest school to that previous polling place. So if something should happen, and so far until this week, we were able to make those changes right on their sample ballots. So the sample ballots are up to date. Now, between now and August 18th is when it gets more challenging. And just this week, the Hunters Creek Homeowners Association, which has 3 buildings that we use for polling places, suddenly said, no, we can't use them. They're not open to the public. And so we immediately called the school board, and all 3 of them have been shifted over to 2 different schools. And so we will be sending out direct mail because we've got 27 days till the election right now. But we'll do whatever we have to notify. The homeowners association is going to do email blasts and all. So it is a concern about that. But I think we all felt good that we were on the backside of the pandemic and schools were going to reopen and people wanted to get out, and it's good. But now that all of a sudden we're seeing these spikes again, we're going to have to pay close attention. But I know that we'll go to whatever length. Back in the presidential preference, we lost an assisted living facility right before, like 2 days before the election. And so I got a hold of my old Boy Scout days, and we got a Boy Scout troop to go around and hang door hangers on the doors in the neighborhoods for that precinct to let them know that their polling place had been moved to a different location. So we'll take whatever steps we have to notify the voters on it. Signage will be at the old location, directing them to the correct location, and we'll handle each one as we can up to election day, and hopefully we don't get any last minute surprises.
Okay. TJ, go ahead, take it over.
Yeah, man. Hey, that's very great information to know, because the last thing we want to do is show up to our normal voting place only to see a sign on the door that says, "Hey, we moved across town somewhere," and by the time you get there, it's like, oops, too late. So that's very great to know that you guys are on top of it, and we'll be doing it in a very timely manner. Just
remember that the Orange County Elections Office does not own a single polling place. And that's the problem. We're at the mercy of other people to provide us with it. So the solution would be become a state like Oregon or Washington State and Colorado State and just do all mail ballot elections. And now you don't have to worry about locations and going to the wrong place.
That's very interesting to know. Wow. Now we're going to go around the horn, and our next person, we're actually going to talk to Debbie King, because just like when she introduced herself, the accent just rolled off, and I just love me some Latinas. So
I don't have an accent.
I just love how it sounds. So
we'll just have me and Mary Jose just pitch up here, and you'll the rest of the hour.
So go ahead, TJ. So Debbie, go ahead and just tell us a little about yourself, and as well as the organization and the importance and what your organization is going to do for this, what it's doing to help this upcoming election to get people out to vote.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, TJ Legacy, for inviting us, and TJ for out here. So Mi Familia Vota, we are a nonprofit civic engagement organization. It's in our name, Vota. That means vote in Spanish. And we do a lot of issue work campaigns. This year in Hillsborough County, our goal was to register 15,000 new Latino voters. And we were going to be focusing in like Riverview area and Town and Country here in Tampa. And of course, COVID changed our plans. So we've been doing a lot, just like the Hispanic Federation, phone calls to get people to not just register to vote, but sign up for vote by mail. And Maria Jose actually put in here a myth about voting by mail. She had put voters can cheat by voting by mail and then again in person. But the truth is that the first ballot received by the supervisor of elections is the one that's counted. So if you forget that you mailed it or you lost your vote by mail, you can still go to your poll if you want. And so if you have any questions or concerns, voting by mail is very safe. There's always a slight opportunity for fraud, just as in in-person voting. And Mr. Cowles will tell you that they take every sort of precaution. I've watched a video with his counterpart here in Hillsborough County, Craig Latimer, about what the process is for sending out and receiving the vote by mail. One of the great things about the counties that we're in, Orange and Hillsborough, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Cowles, but if you don't have a stamp, that postage will actually be paid and you'll still be able to send it in, because there's a lot of folks who are not going out. You might not know how to order a stamp. You don't want to go to the grocery store and buy an entire book, which costs $11. That can be prohibitive for folks. So you can just order it. And I received mine here. I haven't filled it out yet, but it comes in an envelope similar to this. And one of the best things is when you open this, you might see Judge District 32. What in the world is that? Who are these people, right? Judicial races, they don't have a lot of money. They can't show you TV commercials. So you can sit there, talk to your friends and family. And especially for a lot of folks that have come from Puerto Rico, there's this in Puerto Rico, election day is a holiday. Imagine that.
Imagine that. Imagine so common sense.
It's a holiday. So families actually go and vote together.
We need a holiday to vote.
Yes. So
somebody read it up.
You can make it your own little holiday. You can sit down with your family that you're social distancing with, and then you can ask their questions. You can reach out. If you have a group that you trust, like Mi Familia Vota or another group, Hispanic Federation, that might, we don't do endorsements, but if there's something like that might endorse, you can ask them who to vote for, find out who the people are. Take your time. And then if you have a car, you can hop in your car, go drop it off at the early voting location. You might even get a cheer when you walk in with your mask. So I've gone in and people like cheer for me, the poll workers, cheer them for actually showing up to work, because that's one thing. If you are available during the day, contact Mr. Cowles, contact Greg Latimer, just go and find their phone number. They do need poll workers. They need bilingual poll workers, even backups. There's going to be people who decide at the last minute, I don't feel comfortable going. So reach out, but it's safe. The opportunity for fraud is no different than with, voting in person. It's just, a little bit different. It's just a great way to vote. Keep yourself safe. And, so thanks again for asking those questions. And if you're, in the Facebook Live, if you have any other questions for any of the speakers, go ahead and hear. I actually saw a couple from Marquis that are coming up too. So I'm actually excited to hear his answers on those. Yes,
I'm gonna get to Marquis, and then we're gonna talk about the vote by mail piece as well, because because I gotta be honest and I'm be real on mine. I was one of those people that were skeptical, but not for the reason that's being broadcast for the miseducation, but more so what's going on in the community. And I'm gonna address that soon, but I do want to get to Marquis McKenzie, Florida Rights Restoration Coalition.
Yes.
Please explain let everybody know what work you're doing in the community. I know, so I'm not going to act like I don't know, but let everybody else know, because we cross paths. Let everybody know what the good work that you're doing, a little bit about your story, and the issues that you're championing currently.
Thank you, TJ. I just definitely want to commend all of the speakers and guests on the line for all the work that they're doing in their respective areas in Central Florida, and also Bill Cowles for being a great supervisor elected. With that being said, my name is Marquis McKenzie. I'm from Orlando, Florida. I grew up with my mom and dad, and I always like to start my story off by saying that, because they say if you grow up with your mom and dad in a household, that you're supposed to be this perfect child, but unfortunately that wasn't that wasn't me, right? And at an early age, I went out and I made it a crazy decision, and that crazy decision led me to be sent to prison at the age of 15. In the state of Florida, as a juvenile, if you do commit a certain crime, they can take you out of the juvenile system and charge you as an adult. So I say all of that to say that's the reason why I'm impacted, and that's the reason why I do the work before that I do now, because I know that we still have a lot of brothers and sisters and a lot of people that's incarcerated right now that wish they had the opportunity to do what I'm doing, and I definitely don't want to forget about them. I joined Florida Rights Restoration Coalition back in 2014. I started off as a volunteer, and since then, this year, I just got promoted to the statewide leadership and chapter coordinator. One of our biggest things, appreciate that. Of course, we're doing voter registration. We're getting people registered to vote. But one of the biggest things that I found that was very significant, because at first, a lot of people say returning citizens, they got to vote, but they're not going to go back and vote. That's a myth, right? We know that so many people got their voting rights back after 30, 40 years, even sometimes, and they want to vote. So one of the biggest things that we implemented all the way since the last elections last year, we started doing voter education. And by doing that, we found that a lot of people didn't even know what a precinct means. A lot of people didn't even know where to go to vote. And I was like, we can't have this big population of people with their voting rights back and they don't understand the system. So we're very big on voter education. Like I said, even calling on Bill's Cowles, every time we called their organization, they came out and helped us and educate our voters. Because one of the things that I would see is that people go to polls and don't take advantage of early voting, because early voting, you can go to any polling, right? But our people sometimes just wait and go to election day, and they'll go to the wrong precinct and they'll get turned around. And some of them may go to another one, still the wrong precinct.
That happened to me. And Bill, I ran into Bill at one of the precincts and he corrected me like, what am I doing? So that did happen to me. So go ahead.
Right. So by the time they get to the second precinct, and sometimes TJ Town at the first precinct, they get turned around. That's it. They quit and they don't vote. So our biggest thing is we wanted our people, the returning citizens, to know about the voting system, and the power of voting, and the people that they're voting for and what moves they make. So that's what we're doing right now. Of course, we're doing voter registration, but we're still pushing voter education up to this day, leading up to the elections.
No, so, that's definitely powerful. Go ahead, TJ.
And Marquis, just well, big shout out to you, good friend of mine, Anthony A.D. Davis. He's probably listening to us right now. He's actually my mentor, believe it or not. Real great guy. He's probably watching right now. Now, as far as like that myth of people who's voting saying, well, my vote don't count because it's just a way of just getting people to do something or whatever the case may be. Like, how important or like with you guys educating people, are you guys educating them to let them know that, hey, yes, your vote does matter, and it's not about that whole thing of, well, they already know who they want to elect anyway?
Right. So when it comes down to that, I love that question, right? So, and I hear it a lot when we're in the community. Most people, when they say my vote don't count, and after having a debate and sometimes a friendly argument with them, they only think about the presidential election. And when you talk about that, you have to break it down and say local elections. And once you start breaking it down to that point, say, we're electing judges, we know we're electing sheriffs, we elect the state attorneys, then it start becoming more familiar with them and say, hey, we can make changes. But not only that, when you show them the breakdowns, for instance, in our last mayor race, we had 121,000 people register in that race. We only had 25,000 people show up. So when you start to break the conversation down with them on that level, then they start to see it's like, your vote do count if we actually turn out and show these local elections, and we can make impact that way. Not saying that the presidential election is not important, but local elections is where we see most of our impact and our effect.
Directly impacted.
Local votes matter.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Victor.
I have a former friend, former commissioner, Jennifer Thompson, and she used to emphasize that the local elections in everyday life are probably more important than that national election because they have more direct impact on your daily life. They're the ones that do the local taxes. They're the ones that are making the zoning regulations, so on and so on and so on. So it's important. And one of the races one of my friends ran for and lost. She lost by less than 80 votes. And once we did some pity party work at her party, we found out that 100 of her close Facebook friends did not vote. because
Wow.
they had assumed that she was going to win.
Wow. So
Mm.
that's one key element that we all have to know is that, you know, just because you think this person is great for the job, we still have to get out there and vote. And
This is why I don't believe in those polls that are on the news stations. I don't ever follow.
That's where they get it from. They get it.
Yeah.
They get it from the poll saying, "Oh, this person got a 78% chance of winning." It was like, "Oh, they finna win this. Don't need my vote." You never know.
You know,
Yeah. Bill, go ahead.
Another perspective on it, and the groups that are represented here understand it. You know, our population has come from somewhere else, and particularly when they come in, let's just say Puerto Rico, here, we vote here in the country so many different positions that the education is so important for them to understand who these individuals are. There are people who do not know the difference between a Tony Ortiz, Orlando City Commissioner, and Myra Uribe, who is a county commissioner. They don't know what's the difference, you know, and depends on where they live and what service they're getting, and all that. And so we've got to do a better job of educating as to local and make sure they understand what the positions do to support them in their daily lives and to build the community that we want here. And that's why we see like the primary election could be less than 25% turnout. And then we turn around and the presidential election could be an 80% turnout, but it's because they're coming out for that top position. But most of those things are going to be decided on August 18th are more important.
Exactly.
In terms of, you talk about the sheriff for Orange County, and who the state attorney is going to be going forward, and we all know it, but they don't understand it. And you know, maybe for those who have had unfortunate run-ins with the law, they may have a better understanding about sheriff, but they're not going to understand about commissioners and all that. And and it's a systematic problem in our school system because they don't have enough time to teach, except that we're a democracy and we elect our president. And that's the most important thing.
That's where it starts. Honestly, that's where it really begins.
Yeah, and you could tell that because there were a lot of people that didn't know about the Electoral College.
Exactly.
Oh, what?
The Electoral College. It's like, what is that?
Yeah, exactly. So people didn't know exactly.
So explain who an elector is in the Electoral College. Then you really are an expert.
Yeah. Before Marquis, there's a question. I believe it's directed towards you, but I think anyone, if they have this information, could help. Another one for Deborah Smith. She says, is it true that incarcerated people count towards congressional district numbers when determining a district, but yet they can't vote?
Can you say that the first part of that again for me?
Okay, no problem. Sorry. It says, is it true that incarcerated people count towards congressional district numbers when determining a district, but yet they can't vote?
I can say I don't think that's necessarily true for all incarcerated people, but maybe some people. But I don't think all people.
Is that where the census would come in?
I think that I think that's what they're. I think the way they worded it was
answering
weird.
that. I feel comfortable. Yeah, I feel comfortable answering that because I'm actually, oh God, so many Zoom calls since COVID-19.
Yes.
There's another organization or a coalition that's around actually voting for our incarcerated, because if you're not convicted of a felony and you're incarcerated, you can technically vote. While you're in jail, you can vote, but you know how it is in the state of Florida, not quite sure how that's working out. How incarcerated folks are able to vote, you know, that's something that we're looking into maybe later. Maybe not you know, have the resources to tackle that issue this year, but I mean, it's something that I'm following. So yes, incarcerated folks, depending on where they are incarcerated, that actually counts for the redistricting for the population. And so there's also issues in terms of how, again, that disenfranchises communities of color, particularly Black communities, things like that, because depending on where those people are incarcerated, you know, those are resources that are not going towards the communities that they originally were living in.
Yeah.
It's money going towards where they're currently at. And if you look at where a lot of these prisons are, they're not, they're in areas where there's a lack of jobs, and the only jobs that are really around are prisons. So
yeah. Maria, do you want to
can of worms?
Do you want to read off your Maria's hitting us up with, and we have a chat, some myths and some truths. So do you want to read off your latest one?
Yeah, like I definitely want to get through the myths and truths about vote by mail, at least in this conversation, because I think it's really important if people are seriously considering voting by mail because of concerns of COVID-19. I just want to make sure that people are aware that it is safe, and that the potential of fraud is like minuscule to almost none. So one of the myths is that voters can receive multiple mail ballots and vote multiple times. The truth is that ballots are barcoded to individual voters, and the supervisor of elections only counts the first ballot a voter returns. So ballots in an envelope with no barcode are going to be rejected. So I know, because I vote in person, I choose to go and vote in person, because I became a new voter in 2016 when I became a US citizen. So just for me personally, I plan on going to vote in person. I know that when I go, there is a barcode that is associated with me, with my name, with my personhood. And it's the same with vote by mail. The barcode is associated with the person. And if there is no barcode, then, it's not going to count. So that's another myth.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely. Go ahead, Bill.
Statewide, there's a statewide voter registration database, and we feed information into it every day. Who we mailed ballots to, whose ballots have been returned, who early voted, what early voting site did they go to. And then on election day, we're also checking voters in. And all the polling places across the state, whether it be early voting or election day, are all connected to that statewide database. And so it tells you whether a person has already voted by mail. And once your ballot's in for vote by mail, then you have deemed to vote, and you can't get your ballot back if something changes. Somebody gets removed or from the ballot, or somebody drops a bomb, whatever, on their opponent, and you want to change your vote. You can't get it back once that ballot's mailed to us, but you're logged in as having done your one vote. So that's how we can see when you go to an early voting site that you've already voted by mail, so you can't vote in person. Or the other thing was put in place so that with 18 early voting sites here in Orange County, you can't go to one every hour and try to vote at each of the sites, because once you lock yourself in as have voted at a early voting site, you're done. You can't show up at the polling place to vote. And, we keep talking about the fraud. Most of the fraud we hear and talk about is perception of fraud. It's people's perception of what they knew the law was in the state they came from, or the country they came from, or what they believe their party's telling them that the rules are, but it's perception. In reality, the actual documented cases of fraud is as low as 0.00025, and that's a national average.
A lot of zeros.
Okay. TJ, go ahead.
Well, that's very great information, because
I have a piece that I know I'm saving because I want to talk. I want to talk, but I want to get to everybody's organization. So go ahead. TJ. Yeah,
absolutely. That's really good, Bill. So like our next round the horn guest is Ricardo, and one thing that we want to actually know primarily is to talk about the advocacy that you have within your organization and the importance of it.
Oh, hi everyone. Thanks for the invitation again. So my name is Ricardo. I'm the legal service coordinator for Latino Justice for our regional office in the Southeast. Latino Justice, we're a civil rights litigation firm. We are headquartered in New York. We were founded back in 1972.
Mhm.
And we have offices here in Orlando and we in Texas and in Long Island. So we have our pillars which are around immigration, economic justice, criminal justice reform, Puerto Rico, and obviously voting rights. And here in Florida in particular, we've been very involved in the issues concerning voting rights, and the difference between, for example, Mi Familia Vota and Hispanic Federation, which are very involved in the voter registration process and the educating voters about what they're, how to register, how to go out to vote and get out the vote. We focus mostly on the election protection component, which means once people are registered and once people go to vote, making sure that their vote is actually counted, that they were not turned away at the precincts, that they receive the materials in Spanish, for example, in the place in the counties where they have a right to receive the materials in Spanish. So here in Florida, we back in 2018, we brought a lawsuit against 32 counties on behalf of Spanish dominant voters who fall under provision of the Voting Rights Act. It's called the 4E. We call it the 4E litigation because it's under 4E, Section 4E of the Voting Rights Act. And what that meant was that in counties where there are voters who were educated under an American flag but in another language, which this is very, here in Florida, is very specific to the Puerto Rican community, then these voters have the right to receive their election materials in Spanish. And this section of the Voting Rights Act, it doesn't contemplate population percentage, which is different here in Orange County, which falls under a separate provision. So there were 32 counties here in Florida that were not in compliance with this. Right now, there's a preliminary injunction. So for now, for the August 18th primary, we're going to be out monitoring these counties, and it's a very long list. I don't want to name all the 32 counties, but it's very easy to find them just by Googling 32 counties, Florida, Spanish. It's going to come up. So we're going to be out there as possible. We're recruiting volunteers. We're recruiting also for paid positions to have poll monitors outside the polling locations, inside their cars with protective equipment, and just making sure that folks are not having issues and that they're receiving the materials that they have a right to. And
let me ask,
yes,
how do you know how many different languages the ballots come in?
Well, I can answer that one.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. Basically, in Florida, going with this election cycle, because of the lawsuit, you're going to find almost the governor even went further and said that you take the ones that were already under it by federal law, the ones that came under the lawsuit that Latino Justice did, it only left a handful of counties. So the governor pretty much said every county has to be bilingual. And so the state should be all bilingual for the primary in general. And Miami-Dade has a county ordinance for targeting polling places, precincts that have high Creole population speakers, that they have to do it there. Broward County opted years ago to do Creole. And so those are the two that actually do ballots in a third language in the state. Here in Orange, we're one of them that's under the federal requirement. I want to come back to it because Maria covered her hot topic is census, and this is a tie-in to the census. But we do English, Spanish, but we also do a Creole template of our ballot, and it's in every precinct. So if a person needs it, there is a template that they can use to translate their ballot and be able to vote with that system. The census, One of the questions on the census is what the primary language is, and when the and the ethnicity. And once it's done, the census, the state law or federal law, the Voting Rights Act says that if 5% or more of the population speaks a language other than English, the jurisdiction must provide the ballot in that language.
Got it.
In
Okay.
the Latino leadership lawsuit, they did it a little different because they went to the different section that if you had been educated in a American school system that was taught in Spanish, being in Puerto Rico, coming here, you should have it. So that was a different section that covered. But the bottom line is the Department of Justice, who tells us what languages we have to do, comes directly from the census count. So it's important that everybody fill out that census form and answer all the questions, because that's what's used to determine ballot languages across the country.
Yeah, I wanted to because I guess we'll touch on, like, I want to talk about, we're going to talk about census, and we're going to talk about I want to talk about ballot brokers and that whole situation, because that's a lot of the reasons why many in our community, in the Black community, are very skeptical of what's going on. But I do want to get to Victor Collazo, who's representing League of Women Voters of Orange County. Victor, I think the elephant in the room for people who may watch this is saying, well, one of the misconceptions is that League of Women Voters is just women in the organization. So who is Victor Collazo? So explain to kind of clarify that misconception of the League of Women Voters, and talk about some of the outreach that your organization has done and what you're doing currently.
Well, a couple of misconceptions, and one is that we need to make it clear that we are nonpartisan. We're a 501c4 organization, so we make sure we don't do anything to jeopardize that tax-exempt function. And Orange County League of Women Voters is the largest league of women voters in the country, and we have the most male members of anyone in the country. So a lot of our work, a lot of our volunteers are males, and that's important, especially nowadays. You know, our role is to promote and protect the rights, people's rights to vote. So we do a lot of advocacy work. We do a lot of research. We get in lawsuits with many of the organizations, some of the organizations that are here now to protect the right to vote. And someone had mentioned that about volunteers. I wanted to quickly mention we are really a volunteer-driven organization. And if you're interested in anything, I'm going to quickly, real fast, run down the committees that we have advocacy groups for: education, government, gun safety, healthcare, immigration, juvenile justice, natural resources, transportation, and voter services. And I'm representing the voter services committee that we deal, and we partner with many of the some of the organizations. I know I've worked with a couple of the groups here in the past, over the last 5 or 6 years, at different events. And membership is important, not only for our organization, but for all the organizations. And one thing that we started last year was membership is free to the Orange County League of Women Voters if you're a college student or a high school student. So it's important, I think, for us to get the young people involved, and this is a great way for them to get involved. And then they could join any of those advocacy committees that we have right there. Some of the big things are mail-in voting. I have a big campaign going on about that. Restoration of rights for felons, and we're included in the lawsuits dealing with that. And we just volunteer anywhere. And we are open to work with any group. we will go anywhere and help you register to vote. And Bill, you can help me with this, but I think the legislation has changed on who can collect voter registration forms. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think most of them.
The people that used to go around and just collect them and for money and things like that, they can no longer do that, and they need to be from organizations. Is that correct?
Correct. I think I can go around the table here and say, okay, tell me your 3P VRO, third party voter registration organization number, and they can probably just snap it off just like that. Because under the new law, the law, you have to be a registered third party voter registration organization with the state. You get a number assigned to you. That number goes on the applications for tracking, but also then you're responsible for turning the applications in within 10 days of the voter signing it. And those are also things we heard tonight about the challenges during this pandemic of not being able to get out and be face to face with potential voters completing that form. So there are penalties if you don't get the form back in within the 10 days when the voter signed it. But there are multiple ways that people register to vote. We got the online way. In Orange County and in probably most of the counties, almost 50% or more of the new registrations we get come from the driver's license offices because of the Federal Motor Voter Act that says all driver's license offices must offer voter registration when they're offering you a driver's license. And Florida changed its voter registration to allow 16 and 17-year-olds to pre-register to vote because of that law, because every 16-year-old wants to go get their driver's license. So there's a chance for that. So number one is driver's license. Number two, applications coming from third-party voter registration organizations. Then the online voter registration method. And then those voter registration drives that we do where people reach out to us to do unique voter registration drives for their businesses or whatever. That's where we're at. So that's the various ways that a person has to get registered.
I know for us, we have two people check every registration form that is handed for us. And the one thing we tell everyone is make sure the signature you have on that form matches is the one you're going to use when you vote, or matches what's on your driver's license. Because if they're checking the mail-in ballot for signature, they're going to they don't have it, can't read the one, if it doesn't match the one on the registration form, they will check your driver's license. And if it doesn't match that, it could disqualify. Again, they'll correct me if I'm wrong. And so we have two people check, and it's so important. And that's why it's important now to go through, and even if you are registered, because some of us with more life experiences, sometimes our signatures change for physical reasons.
Right.
My signature is nothing like it was when I first registered to vote in high school. And
well, I think isn't that the concern of
a lot of it, right?
of a lot of people with vote by mail is that with the signatures and not matching, and that people feel like, okay, this is a mechanism to discriminate against me and disenfranchise the voters and for my vote to not count. Can you speak on that, Bill?
I'm going to throw that to Maria Jose, because I know she had one of her questions about that too.
Go ahead. Yeah.
The ACLU actually did a report that they did some research in the state of Florida in 2018. They found that Black and Latino voters, their vote by mail ballot was twice as likely to get rejected or tossed out than their white counterparts. And it was over really minor, like infractions or minor things. And one of those things was the fact that they forgot to put signatures. So I know that they have to put like 2 signatures for vote by mail. I don't know if maybe Debbie can show her vote by mail ballot, or someone can show where they need to sign, and also the signature does not match to their state issued ID, which to be frank, most people, like, you know, when you're signing digitally,
that's just dumb.
At the DMV, I agree with you, TJ. I think it's dumb. When you're
using your finger, like that's
when you're trying to sign your signature digitally in the DMV looks nothing like your actual signature.
Nope.
So, you know,
I don't know how.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think I need to jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
The signature that is used to compare to your certificate envelope, which is the back of the envelope where you sign, is the signature off of your voter registration. Now, I've heard, Victor, the comments about compare it to your driver's license, but when we do the research, we must start with voter registration application.
Right.
And for a lot of people, that's a very old application.
Yes.
But again, in the vote by mail process, your signature is your ID, because there's no other way for us to see or know you. And so it goes with the signature. So that's why there needs to be periodic, people update their signatures. And, you know, when you look at that, and I saw the ACLU report, and I'm glad you said 2018, because in 2016, the ACLU used all ballots that were returned undeliverable as not counted ballots, and it threw Orange County's total way out of whack because it was not true. But the signature is the one on the voter's record. And I would encourage any of you, so that you can educate yourself going back, come to one of the canvassing board meetings, because it's not a single person making the decision. Now, the law has given that cure affidavit, which we talked about before, and the cure affidavit gives a person a chance to fix it. But what we see when you take and sit there at the canvassing board, the canvassing board is a county judge who serves as the chair, a county commission member, and the supervisor of elections, unless we're on the ballot and a candidate. And so we're the final decision. We take a final look at it. And we don't even reject them until that Thursday afterwards to make sure that the cure affidavit has not come in. But what we see is, first off, one of the issues is they don't teach cursive writing in schools. But this word is your signature, not print your name. And that's a common mistake on that. And that interpretation needs legislative change.
That's what was my next that was going to be my next piece was if that's something that's is so conflicting and causing so much controversy.
It needs,
why don't we change that?
It needs to be changed. Right. The other thing is identity theft, the fear of identity theft. And my wife is within shouting distance of this, but I know how she signs a receipt in the restaurant when she's leaving, because she doesn't want the waiter or the waitress to have her signature. And some people do it so much that when it comes time to do official document, whether it be a census form, a IRS form, or their vote by mail envelope, they do the same thing. Wow. And so, you know, when that happens and we match it up to what we have is a clear written signature, all that. So we've got to have some way. The message means if you need to update your signature, and as some have said, you got to figure out a way to remember which one is the one that you use. And again, I agree with the comment about the signature pads. They're the same way. Whether it be the driver's license or if you're at Walmart, Target, or whatever, you don't want the cashier to see how you do it. So on the voter registration form is a spot to update your signature. I know people who come into my office annually before the election starts, and they'll say, I want here to update my signature because I know it's changed. And some of them are judges who sign documents all day long, and each year they shorten their signature.
Yeah,
and the other thing is an X for somebody who has palsy or a medical issue, and all they can do is make an X or draw a line. that's their mark, that's their signature, but they need to update it so that's what's on their record. And so it is a hot topic, but it's one that right now all we have is your signature, is your identity to verify that that's you.
So Bill, real quick, like just hearing all of this, do you feel that this is like a discouragement from people having to mail in their ballot versus just doing it regularly, like walking into the thing and like, okay, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and go inside the voter registration booth and do it? If they're so much concerned about the signature and people, you know, saying, all right, well, we're not going to count this because your signature don't look like this. Do you think that's a discouragement?
When you look at the vast majority whose vote by mail get accepted, they're taking personal responsibility on it. Either they're updating their signatures. So again, it's that personal responsibility. I think the problem is when they get into the rush or they're being forced to do it in front of somebody, they may not, you know, do it the way they would normally do if they're on their own. So they need to take personal responsibility and, you know, keep their record up to date with us, because that's all we have. And I can remember the year I tried to update signatures, and it was right. And some of you here will remember when a certain former governor decided he was going to go track down the non-citizens. And I had just mailed out these things suggesting to voters who vote by mail who may have had signature issues, they thought that was my trick to get them to update their signature when I was really looking for their citizenship. So it's a tough one, but the signature is your identity.
Yeah. Well, before we go to, I know Maria has another fact, another myth versus truth. We're gonna get to that, and then we're gonna go around the horn again. Bill, I have to ask you, and I know my community would be very upset if I did it. Ballot brokers, and what can people do if people are knocking on your door to, you know, collect your ballot? You know, I know you're not supposed to give it, but the culture that we have, there's a pocket section in Orange County, specifically in the African American community, our elderly and our you know, people with disabilities, that we have these ballot brokers that go around year after year. I know you're aware of it, that go to collect these ballots, and it's a problem. It's a way of voter suppression. So what are we doing to identify these people, to punish these people, and then re-educate the community on the issue of ballot brokers?
Yeah, it's a tough issue. There are some things that we have tried to do. Let me just point out one of the reasons we sold the Board of County Commissioners on putting the postage on the return vote by mail ballots was because we knew people were going around saying, oh, you don't have a stamp, I'll go buy it for you and I'll put it on there for you. So we wanted to get rid of that issue that they didn't have a stamp to do it. Again, I hate to keep saying personal responsibility, but if we say it on the secrecy sleeve with all the messages, don't give your ballot to somebody you don't trust, you don't know on that.
Tell people what
the law.
I'm sorry, can you tell people
Go ahead, Debbie.
what a broker is?
Well, again.
What is a ballot broker?
It's a person who's being paid to go around and pick up ballots. And what they'll do is they'll go to a house and they'll say, oh, you got a vote by mail ballot, because they're working for a campaign. They know who got ballots, and they'll go there and say, oh, let me get your ballot. Okay, you know, just sign it. I'll put the ballot in the mail for you, or hey, I'll take and mark it for you. And then they walk outside. And, you know, a lot of times if they walk outside and they see a yard sign and it's for their opponent, I'm never going to see that ballot. Now, you know, and that person trusts that they returned the ballot, but instead of, you know, so we need to educate them to check their status, because if that ballot never gets to me, they're still eligible to vote early or at a polling place.
Bill, could we not do, go ahead.
They will focus on sections of communities where a lot of elderly may live, apartment complexes, those kind of places where they know that that's not getting out is not so accessible, and so they try to do those kind of things.
But could we not put a watch list, Bill? Could there not be, if we know, because and I know, and I'm not going to give them the, you know, I know some of the people, and if we could look, we know some of these individuals' names and who are year after year that are doing this. Could we not put like a watch list, or how do we discourage some of the these politicians, some of these incumbents that are using some of these individuals to do this?
Well, I will just say you do what happened a couple of years ago and is happening again in the town of Edenville. Until the biggest problem is we may know who, we may be able to turn it over to the state attorney, but when they go out to prosecute and they can't get the voters to acknowledge who they gave them to or what their connection is to the person, all that, the prosecution ends. And in the town of Edenville, they finally, voters stood up and said it was enough for their community. They went to the state attorney, to the grand jury, and they testified. And there was a court, and there was an elected official removed from the office, and things were back in a better position. And then right now there's a lawsuit from Edenville out there. And again, it's where people are calling out who these individuals are. And that's the biggest thing that's got to happen, TJ, is people have got to stand up and speak out and say they're going to stop it, instead of saying, when the state attorney's investigator goes and they say, oh, I don't remember that. No, I don't know that, I didn't do that. And then they can't go forward.
Okay. TJ, go ahead. Thank you for answering that. And I know people, and I'll definitely, I would love to, on a side note, I would love to coordinate with the Supervisor Elections Office as much as possible to bring more awareness about these things, because it's still going on. It's still a way of, you know, and it's quite frankly, I'm gonna be frank about it, it's how some people are staying in office and getting elected. And even with and I hear what you're saying, even with the information that is being gathered, you know, sometimes, you know, people feel they're being deterred from even speaking out. So that's why a lot of times you're getting the, oh, I don't remember that, or, you know, they're changing their story, because these are people that have to go to work. They have to live here. They don't want to be targeted by someone who's potentially, you know, an incumbent or someone who's an elected official. They feel like, you know, there could be some sort of backlash. So, you know, I would love to work with supervisors. There needs to be somewhat of a safe, where do you go? A safe space to.
He disappeared.
Did Thanos snap his fingers or something?
He disappeared. Maybe he'll come back on, because maybe the thing happened or it froze. But yeah, I would say, see, this is what happens, Mr. Collazo. When I say I want to work with people, they just kind of.
Hey, they got that Thanos effect.
Oh, here he is. He's coming back. I'm just joking. But yeah, there's the Thanos snap. TJ, you had a question for Maria. We'll just continue with that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So Maria, Jose.
Good job.
I try to. You
don't have to roll the R's. It's just Maria Jose.
Maria Jose.
Okay. All right. Cool. So can you just elaborate with us just a little bit about the the census issues that's happening?
The census issue?
Yes. You wanted to speak more about the impact of the census.
Impact on it, yes.
So the most current thing that's a hot topic is this administration has released an executive order or a mandate, basically saying that they will not count immigrants or undocumented individuals for the census, which is constitutional. It's unconstitutional. Like, it's a constitutional mandate that whomever resides within the borders of the United States, irrespective of what your status is, immigrant, citizen, whatever, it does not matter. They need to be counted in the census. And it's not only disenfranchise and impact immigrant communities, but it's also going to impact the municipalities and the county, in the government, the county commissions, because the reality is that every municipality is dependent on these federal monies so that they can withstand the infrastructural needs of the populations that reside within their borders. Osceola County is a really good example. People complain all the time that the millage rate, that the taxes in Osceola County is really high. Well, the reason why that is because Osceola County is an undercounted, it's an undercounted county, meaning that the last time the census rolled around, which was in 2010, the census is every 10 years. So 10 years ago, the entire population of Osceola County wasn't counted, right? Or there was a huge undercount. And so there was a gap, funding gap, that county did not receive from the federal government. And yet they still have to be able to provide services for their county, for the people. And the only way they can do that is if they raise taxes, raise the millage rate to be able to pay for those services, to be able to provide for those services. So irrespective of what your political stance is on immigration, whether you want undocumented people to be here or not, the reality is that people live here, they're here. And you know, our municipalities need to be able to withstand the infrastructural needs of the population that resides in those counties, in those municipalities. So if we don't count people, and that includes homeless people, that includes people that are incarcerated, it includes everybody. If we don't make people count, at the end of the day, we as taxpayers are going to pay for it. It's going to get paid for some way or the other. And I'd rather that my tax money, because remember, everybody pays taxes. Your money goes to the federal government, and then they decide what to give you back based on the people that make themselves count. I want my money back. I want to see money invested in my community. So it is in my best interest as a taxpayer to make sure that everybody in my municipality is counted.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
It's very important, if I may.
Go ahead, Ricardo.
Very important to say that so the census does not have the citizenship question. It was not allowed on the census, and the census also does not ask you for a social security number or your ID number or any type of like identifying information that way. So we still want our people to, and our communities to fill out the census and participate and get counted, because that's one of the ways that we can show that we're here, that our power as a community, and also get the resources that we need.
Absolutely.
Victor?
I wanted to, if I could get off of that quickly, I wanted to make sure before we ran out of time, I wanted Marquis and Bill to talk about, I know tomorrow the league has a workshop talking about our efforts to register felons, disenfranchise that large population. And we all know, those of us in Florida involved with this, that the lawsuit and the appeals and all that sort of thing. So we're getting ready because we're expecting to win. And so we want to be ready to go to make sure that we can register as many people as we can. It's going to be too late for the primary, but for the national election, we want to make sure that our disenfranchised felons. Marquis, can you talk, because I don't know if the general public really understands what that is and what the law is and what this means to felons.
Right. So we haven't been putting too much energy into the lawsuit and what's going on. We're just been pressing forward. And as soon as the judge Hinkle ruling was over appealed to go to the higher Supreme Court by the governor, we just went back to our fines and fees program. In certain counties, we built connections with the chief judge, the clerk of courts, and the public defender's office, where some individuals, we don't use the word convicted felons anymore. We just say returning citizens, where they can get some of those fines converted to a community service hours, or their sentence can get modified, where it's simply saying that they still do owe the fines and fees, but their sentence is complete and they can register to vote. And the individuals who can't get that done in particular counties, we're just going by and we're paying off their fines and fees. Last December, we paid almost 275,000 out to us returning citizens across the state to get them registered. So, like I said, we're not paying too much and putting too much energy into what the governor's doing about the lawsuit. We're just pressing forward. Where people see obstacles, we see opportunity, and we're just moving forward and making sure our people are educated. Because one thing that we do know is from the time that Amendment 4 passed and that it went from registration open, it's still a lot of returning citizens out there registered to vote. So instead of putting that energy in about who can't vote, we're just trying to target the ones that we know for a fact that we register or register throughout the state through other organizations, and making sure they know that they can vote, and making sure that they turn out and have a voting plan. So that's where we're at with it now. Back to the fines and fees program, and we're opening back up, and we're trying to pay off many fines and fees for our returning citizens.
Bill, and any advice for those of us that may know returning citizens?
Well, and what they're doing is commendable, and unfortunately not set up here in Orange County presently. I know that they have actively had discussions with the players at the courthouse, and I've said that, you know, I'd be more than glad to register them if the others came together and did what they're doing in other counties on it. So really for us, based on what's gone on in the courts, is that it's now in Atlanta at the 11th Federal Appeals Court, and they've agreed for the whole court to hear the case. The Supreme Court did not take it up, and now there's a big fight over how some of the justices there should be removed, because two of them used to be on the Florida Supreme Court and had voted on an earlier ruling related to this. But we're all the way back to that infamous day in January of 2019, which was the first day returning citizens could register to vote. Mm-hmm. And basically all that we can say at this time is, if you believe that you've met all the requirements to register to vote, go ahead and register. But I would guess that Desmond Meade and Marcus and the others who have been on this for seems like a lifetime in getting this passed, you know, will say is, I don't think they've come across a state attorney anywhere in the state that would prosecute a returning voter citizen for having registered and gone through this roller coaster ride on the litigation to take this amendment that passed overwhelmingly in the state and make it a reality without question. So again, it's at this point, our office is saying, if you believe you're eligible and you've met the requirements, go ahead and register. Otherwise, go seek help or assistance from organizations like the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition.
Okay. And another thing we've been encouraging is for returning citizens to call our, I guess I got blocked off, to call our hotline, which is 1-877 my vote 0. And, you know, we're able to assist them, you know, not give out legal advice. I mean, we even have a group of attorneys that's, you know, spread across the state that's willing to represent and help these returning citizens make sure that they are able to vote, because we don't want anybody to get prosecuted. So we encourage them to call our hotline, where we can take them through a survey to answer those questions to make sure before they register to vote, and definitely make sure that they're safe to be able to do so in their respective counties.
Absolutely. Listen, and I know we want to be respectful of everybody's time. We're going to do a round moral of the story, which is the segment on our show as we wrap up. But I know, TJ, you have a final question for Bill Cowles.
Yes. Hey, all right. So Bill, real quick. Now, I'm not sure if you heard about what happened, you know, in Louisville about certain, you know, precincts being, you know, shut down. And then again, you've also mentioned the fact that you guys have no control over that. Have you heard anything about certain venues shutting down because of COVID-19, and they want to try to, you know, make sure everything is copacetic and social distancing? Have you heard anything about venues that normally do have voters registration come there being shut down because of the COVID?
In terms of polling places and early voting sites, I'm sure each county has had to deal with minimal amount of change from the big picture. And part of it is because, as I said in my opening a little bit about the timeline. And so a lot of them were because, you know, in the presidential preference primary, a lot of them were because of the assisted living facilities that were polling places, and because they still are a high risk location. But again, we don't own the facilities. But here in Orange County, out of 247, we're talking about less than 10 that we've had, and we've been able to find replacements. And from that standpoint, so I think Florida's going to go forward. I think we'll do fine with the 2 elections. I think a lot of it, remember, when you talk about Louisville, Kentucky, talk about a lot of these states, they postpone their elections, then they try to change their laws, and they rush to get the election in, and their structure was not built to handle that.
Wow.
And that's where we're fortunate that our structure is a little better, particularly when we talk about vote by mail and how early we mail and the processing time. But you know, we're not rushing things. We're on schedule as it. And again, Florida was supposedly in the recovery phase coming into June and July, and now we're seeing this spike. And that's what, if there's something that worries me every day, is what's going to happen going forward if we don't get this pandemic under control. And we will maybe have to make adjustments for the November election, depending on what it is. I mean, the previous Zoom call I was on before this one, what happens if Mayor Demings decides the only way to get it under control is to do a stay-at-home order again? And now what does that do for in-person voting? And then that means we have to do a shift over to vote by mail. And the good news is we have the structure for it. The other thing is, I know when we built our budget for the general election, we didn't know where we were going. So I made sure that we bought enough envelopes and enough material that we could handle 80% of our voter registration roll as for vote by mail. And that includes a backup to a backup. One of the things that we're going to be purchasing, thanks to the county's CARE grant money, is a backup inserter. So if we have to insert the envelopes ourselves and not use our vendor, we have a machine to do it.
Well, I know we're pressed for time, and I want to make sure we're respectful of everybody's time, because we said we were going to wrap soon. We at the Soapbox, we do a summarizing of what our conversation was, and we call it the moral of the story, which is basically your 30 seconds to 1 minute to talk about, to wrap up anything you would like to say finally, to finalize it, or to give your social media. So I'm going to start with Maria Jose from the Hispanic Federation. Thank you so much for being on the show. What's your moral of the story?
Moral of the story is, if you're a legal U.S. citizen, 18 years or older, please register to vote. Please vote in this election, because your vote does count. Your voice does count in this election. It's a very crucial election this year, especially with what's going on in this country, and particularly with the Black Lives Matter movement. Local elections matter. Local elections matter. If you want to see systemic change, you need to vote for the elected officials that you feel reflect your values. Also with the census, is particularly to the Black and the Hispanic communities, we need to do a better job of educating our communities and making sure that we're doing the necessary outreach so that our money comes back to our communities. So I dropped our hotline, which is 844-432-9832. You can call that number. It's bilingual. We speak English and Spanish, and we can help you if you have questions regarding the census, you have questions regarding online voter registration, or if you need help, resources because of COVID-19. We have been helping the community here in Central Florida, specifically people that are being impacted because of COVID-19. So look us up. I put all of our deets in the comments.
Yes.
Thank you for your time. Hello to everybody. Hopefully we will meet in the future safely in
Yes,
person. God bless.
Yes, we will. Ricardo for Latino Justice.
Yes, well, you can follow and learn more about and what we're doing to protect the elections on our social media at Latino Justice, and also on our website, which is latinojustice.org. And we just want to make sure that folks are educated about what their rights are. So we encourage eligible voters and basically every Floridian to be on the lookout for the campaigns that are campaigns led by nonprofit organizations who are out there educating people about their voting rights, and who are out there making sure that folks are registered, that they know how to mail in their ballots, that they know everything leading up to the election. And I also want to let people know that, as I mentioned earlier, and I posted in the chat the link that they can click and see more details. We are recruiting volunteers, but we also have paid positions available for the Florida primary August 18 election protection. So it's in the comments, so you all can click on it and see the details if you're interested and sign up.
All right, thank you so much. Debbie King with Mi Familia Vota.
I almost began talking on mute. Thank you again to TJ and TJ for hosting. It has been a pleasure. Thank you to Maria Jose and Ricardo and Mr. Bill Cowles and Ricardo and Victor. Y'all have been amazing, and thank you for all the work you do. So my closing thought is, you know, these are extremely trying times. Know that there is a community out there. So you're always available. Just reach out. You can find our contact information on our website, mifamiliavota.org. We're doing all sorts of different public education campaigns. And be kind to yourself as well, because it is extremely difficult. And if you are white, make sure that you're learning about the issues that Black and Brown people experience. There's a wonderful book that I'm reading called Me and White Supremacy, which you can order as an ebook, and take care of other people. This is not going to last forever. There are people who are losing family members and friends. My brother actually just got over coronavirus. He's in the military, and he was sent over to Fort Hood in Texas, and he got it there while in quarantine. So just be safe, be careful. I have one of these. Dale forma a tu futuro, do the census, and make sure you vote. I got my sticker. I don't know if you have these, Mr. Cowles, Bill, but Craig sends me these every time I vote. I love them. They're stickers.
They're in our vote by mail.
Okay.
But thank you again, everybody. It was a pleasure. Remember, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. And how we say in Espanol is que tengan un buen noche, which is have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Thank you. Marquis, McKenzie, Florida Rights Restoration Coalition.
Thank you, TJ, and thank you again to everyone. For me, more of the story is I think first important is dive in and have conversations with people that you normally wouldn't have conversations with, so you can start to see the different reasons that you can learn. And most importantly, get out and vote, despite of your political parties. Get out to vote, educate yourself, and know about the issues that's on the ballot, and know about the candidates that's running. And never stop voting. And for anybody that comes across returning citizens, send them our way. If you don't know all the questions, send them to Florida Rights Restoration Coalition, and we can help them. If they need help paying off their fines and fees, send them our way, because we definitely don't want them to miss out to be a part of democracy.
Absolutely, absolutely. Victor Collazo, representing the League of Women Voters of Orange County.
Again, I'm looking forward to partnering with all of you, and for any of the other organizations that may be listening in, please know that we are available to partner with you. We will figure out how to register people in person somehow. We have to do that somehow.
Drive through.
Yeah, drive through, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
We will figure that out. And I just wanted to remind everyone, register and vote, and that there are volunteer opportunities for all of our organizations. We need your input, your love, your energy to make all of our organizations work. And in a hashtag world, my final hashtags are hashtag your vote matters and hashtag you matter.
Love it. Love it. Supervisor, Orange County Supervisor elections, Bill Cowles, what's your moral of the story?
Well, I think the moral of the story is that we've hopefully cleared up issues that you may have or concerns about the process.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm proud to say that I partner with all these groups to help them in their mission. But again, we at the Orange County Supervisor Elections Office, we're the final piece of the puzzle, and that is we help you cast your ballot to vote. We didn't spend a lot of time talking about it, but be assured that we have spent thousands of dollars preparing the polling places and early voting sites to protect our poll workers and also protect voters when they go. And as everybody says, the final act is just go out and vote.
All right. I like it. I like it. I got to get a mask like that as well.
I was going to say I want one, Bill.
Uh-huh.
You too can order them online. And I don't get nothing, and I don't get nothing for them.
Okay, cool.
Before we sign off, just make sure we get this out there. League of Women Voters, we put all the links on there for that. And also there's a link that I had put on there for anyone in the country to go to get connected to where they can register in their state. So it's just not the state of Florida.
Cool.
It's 39 other states that you can go and register to vote in. So.
My co-host, TJ Chatman. Debbie she just pitched something. She said TJ and TJ. So that might have to be a new, we don't know. We might have to give her some residuals off of that.
Hey,
but TJ, thank you so much.
I like how that came off. I like how it came off.
What's your moral of the story, good brother?
Well, the moral of the story in this case here is that, vote. Mm-hmm. Because as much as we can express it throughout election after election year after election year, this year seems to be more important than anything, because what hasn't been spoken about was the local level, because on a national level, it really doesn't affect much of the local level, because, crime that happens, systemic racism that happens, things that happen in your local area doesn't even reach to the national level until it gets to a point where it's like, all right, now it gets national news and all this other stuff. Yeah. So the moral of this story is get out and vote, put the people in office that's going to make a difference. Okay. Put the people in office that's going to make a difference. Stop complaining without a solution and be the change that you want to see.
I love it. I love it. And my moral of the story is, and I think we touched on it, was a theme. The reason why we had this voter education forum, and I thank everybody for being a part of it. And if I can help your organization in any way, please let me know. Even Bill, I know you got the Thanos finger snap that took you out of the ballot broker conversation, but we can continue that later on. But it's personal responsibility, right? And so educating yourself, voter education is a part of the electoral process. And so we wouldn't be doing our due diligence if we did not encourage you to vote, which is one part. And a lot of my activists, this is just one part of trying to achieve justice. So it's not the end all be all, but it's one part. So you have to be civically engaged. I do believe in it. And so I thank everybody for being here. Make sure you are not skipping over any of the races. Vote down the ballot. Yes. Maria Jose, thank you for saying that.
Yes,
I'm trying to see if there's anything else, but yes, please, personal responsibility. educate yourself even beyond this. Use this as a start, as a jumping off point. Educate yourself. August 18th or the early voting days. Please make sure that you go out there and you let your voice be heard and exercise your vote. All right. So let me do this because it's how I usually do. Let's see if I get it. For Victor, for Debbie King, for Ricardo, for TJ Chatman, for Maria Jose, for Bill Cowles, this is the Soapboxx podcast. Thank you all for joining us. We're out. Peace. Thank you. All right.